Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Thompson and welcome to my studio. Today we are making Zentangle Dreamcatchers. Okay, so we know that Dreamcatchers are traditionally found in Native American culture, and they actually started with the Lakota and Chippewa tribes. Originally, there was a legend of a spider woman, and she would cast a web of protection for her people. As her people grew and spread, and the community grew and spread, she needed a way to share that protection as they went beyond the borders of her surroundings. So what did she do? She used found objects and materials like leather, like feathers, beads, any items she could find, word she had, and created the actual dream catchers themselves. And that's why they have that webbing on the inside. So we know that the dream catcher is meant to catch bad dreams and to create some protection. So I thought we would do a little bit of that today. Now we're going to take ours in a little bit of a different direction. As you can see, we've got these great patterns going on the insides of our design. That's going to be our use of line and shape to create a Zentangle. So let's get started. Okay, first things first. I'm going to be tilting the camera down here in just a little bit so you can see my workspace. But let's talk materials. First, you can use pencils, you can use markers, you can use ink pens, you can use a couple of extra color pencils if you've got those. You're going to need a pair of scissors. If you don't have scissors, don't worry. Now wait, what are we going to need scissors for? Oh, that's right. Some of us have paper at home and some of us don't. So that means I'm going to be drawing my designs on the back of a cereal box. All right, so that means I'm gonna need scissors to cut down my stuff. And there's one more thing. You see the circles? Don't get scared. We're gonna use things to trace to make our circles nice and even and easier to work with. All right, let's get started. Moving you down screen, here we go. Now, if at any time you get to a point to where you need to stop, you can always pause the video. I'm gonna take my scissors and go ahead and cut down my found material, which is my cereal box. Sorry, sounds like I got an email. If you don't have scissors, you'll notice that you've got these handy dandy flaps and they actually already have that bend right there. So that means if you fold that flap a couple of extra times, you can actually tear or remove your edge pieces. All right. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and leave the flap at the top on. And of course, if you're using regular paper, you won't have to do any of those steps. You can go ahead and move forward. I suggest go ahead and grab some of those traceables. You can see I just found a couple of things I had laying around the house. I'm going to work in pen. That means I'm taking the challenge. And of course, if you want to work with pencil, you can do that as well, whatever you are most comfortable with. Start with your largest circle. And I'm going to turn this around for you so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, so I'm starting with my largest circle. Tracing that circle. We know that tracing is going to make this easier. And we're going to start with that largest circle because that way, when we go to put our next circle on the inside, we can actually get it nice and spaced out evenly. Okay. If you do not have enough room to do a third circle, no problem. You can stick with just an inner and an outer ring. Or, like me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a third one in. Okay. Laying out of my circles are done. My rings are ready to go. Now I'm going to do one more thing before I get started, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to go ahead and have these are my feathers, added on. That way I know I won't forget them later. A feather is a little bit different, okay? So most feathers, like you'll see, they start out as an oval, okay? And then they go to a point. All right, so if we got a point that's like a triangle upside down, and then we just connect those walls. The great thing about feathers is they actually don't have to be perfect. They can be nice and round at the top again, long and lean, and sometimes they can even be quasi-broken. What does that look like? That looks like a big chunk, just like that, got taken out. Now let's try that one more time. All this is round at the top, pull one side down, make that little extra point at the side, at the bottom. Pop on over here, and it's almost like a triangle coming in. Point, point, and connect, just like that. And then guess what? We got feathers for days. Now you have the option, you can either have your feathers going straight down or you can have them curving off to the side. I like the idea of like wind, that web of protection coming out and spacing itself out. And I like the idea of not having all of my feathers spaced out perfectly either. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a little bump on this side. And how about I'll do one right there as well, and how about one right here? Okay, let's go ahead and pull this guy down and around. A little bit of a curve line on that end. Let's do it again, down and around. And this one too, there we go. And I'm going to add on my feather, remember round at the top. Okay, let's go ahead and make this guy a little bit shorter. That's my connection, and I'm going to put one of those bump ins. There we go. I'm going to make this guy a little bit longer, so again, round. And you'll notice I'm even using part of the string to help me with this. And I'm going to go all the way to that end right there, so I'm going to go ahead and make that my bump out. And a little crop. And how about one on this side too? Ooh, look at that, pretty. Feathers are all different, so they don't have to be perfect. Now you have the option, you can go ahead and take this last feather and go all the way off the page if you want, or again, just like we did at that last feather, we can slide it upwards. So I'm going to slide mine up a little. Round at the top. I'll pull that point down. I'm going to go ahead and connect it. And let's do one last little bump out right there. All right. Now, whatever shape you don't like, guess what? We can fix it when we go to add in our pattern work. And oh my gosh, guess what? We're ready for that. Let's look at a couple of Zentangle ideas really quickly. Zentangles usually start with a certain type of line. Okay, you can use wavy lines, you can use almost like boxy lines or zigzag, loopy lines, curvy lines, swirly lines, or you can use shapes. Okay, so for example, if I was working on these round guys right here, all that is a double curve, and then you adjust it. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking my double curve, okay, so boom, boom, and I'm just kind of pulling them together. Okay, so there's an option for me. With items like this, that looks a little bit trickier, but all it is you take one corner with a curved line to the middle of the other side of the box. Now we're going to put a spiral right here. And I probably could have pulled that one over a little bit more, but hey, this is what we do. We just go ahead and make it work. Okay. And look at that. I fixed all my mistakes. Wrap another shape right there, and all I'm doing is I'm just filling in some of these spaces with lines. And I'm going to do the same thing right here. The great thing about Zentangles is you can actually take and make anything that you want. For example, this is one that I just made just like that. It's like a spiral, but instead of making it the spiral like what we are used to seeing, you can even fill it in a little bit differently like this. Ooh, look how cool that's getting. You can make it square, you can make it round. These guys, they are going to look pretty easy. So maybe you kind of need a break. And that's the wonderful thing about Zentangling. At some point, you do start to relax. Some of that stress goes away. All right, so there's a couple of options for you. You can always come back and practice doing all sorts of different types of lines. You can think about even rotating your lines around or even making more shapes. These guys are real fun and easy to work with. You just overlap and overlap. Oh my gosh. It's so easy. The only thing you must keep in mind is the goal is to not stress, but just to enjoy. So let's go ahead and move back into our pattern work. All right, before you do anything, switch back here. Before you do anything, I want to go ahead and put something in the center that's going to help create our web. I'm going to put a dot right in the very middle. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that I'm using this feather kind of idea again, but instead of making it round at the top, I'm going to make the oval have points at both ends, point and point. So it's going to look like this. What we are doing is we are adding in the beginning of a web. And this is going to represent how the Spider Woman created her own web of protection, because that's our goal here. Create our own web, relax and create our web. She created that web in order to ensure, again, all of her people that were spreading beyond the local community as they went further away, they would have their protection with them. So let's go ahead and add in one more extra piece. Let's add in some ideas for as we travel. Okay, so let's think north, south, east, and west, because that's how we started with our web in the center. How about north, south, okay, and east and west, not in that order, depending on which way you're looking at it. And we know that we don't just go straight up and straight over. Instead, we might go in different directions. So let's do the same thing, but this time we're going to do it on the inner ring. Okay. We know that some of us like to go northeast. Some of us like to go southwest. Some of us like to go everywhere once we have the chance to again. Alrighty, now that we have created our web start in the center, and we have divided some of our areas for the inner rings, now we can actually start working on some of those patterns. So I'm going to go with one of the patterns that I really enjoy doing the most, and I'm going to take that pattern and I'm going to repeat it in multiple sections. Okay, so I'm going to go with that curve idea. So it's a curved line, curved line. Dun, dun. At this point, you can put on some music. Have a show going in the background if that's your thing. You can actually sit outside and do this when the weather is nice. Artwork on the go, always fun. We call that plein air. Woo! Now, what happens if I mess up, Miss Amanda? Well, guess what? Make it work. Things are going to happen, and maybe the design won't come out exactly the way you want, but if you keep pushing, it'll be just fine. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to repeat this idea directly across on the other side. I like that idea of balance for me. That's kind of how I work. But if you want to make it more uneven, you can do as many different types of designs as you like. Pull that one a little bit closer together. So usually, if you go out in nature, you can find lots of different materials outside that you can use to create your own three-dimensional Dreamcatcher, because we know that we are working two-dimensionally today doesn't mean you can't work three-dimensionally later. All right, so I got two of my patterns ready to go. Let's go ahead and go with some straight lines now. Let me clean that up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Alrighty, and again, I'm going to repeat the same guy right down here. Let's see if I can rock it out. I believe I can. 4, Now you'll notice that I'm counting as I go. For some reason, that helps me make sure that I keep my pattern correct. Because I know that for me, because I like to make this more symmetrical, I want to make sure that my pattern, so like for example, I've got the 4 lines in 2 directions, and then I've got curved lines for these guys, that's still repeating. I'm repeating that shape over and over and over again. All right, let's do something a little bit different on one of these outsides. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break up this space all the way through. With Zentangle, you want to make sure that you are adding in as many patterns within the space as you can. So for example, if we're looking at the inside of my Dreamcatcher right now, those big open gaps, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to add more patterns into those. That way, more of that space will be full. And of course, if at any time you want to stop and add color, you can always do that. And I'm going to go one more round. I'm going to do the same thing. This is almost like a sunflower effect. Did you know that sunflowers follow the sun? That's right. When the sun is up in the morning in the east, sunflowers will face towards the east. And as the sun goes over top and sets in the west, sunflowers will actually follow it all day long. So imagine yourself on a highway and you are about to approach a big, huge field of sunflowers. I'm going to keep going. Like I said, the more I add, the better it looks. So let's just go ahead and do it. And just when you think that you're done, we're going to keep adding more. Yep, that's right. We are going to keep adding more. I'm going to add one more thing in here, I think. I want one more row right there. Sure do. Oh yeah, look at that. See? The more I added, the better it looks. We got to do it, team. It's like when you're putting that love out into the universe. You got to put out as much of that wonderful love as you got. Spread that good energy. Spread that protection. Wash your hands. Don't touch each other. Alrighty. So now we've got a pretty good start around the sides. I could leave this for later to add color. I could keep adding on more pattern, but I'm actually going to come back into the inside right here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a point that's going to be repeated all the way through. Remember, the idea is to create a pattern. The reason why I'm adding this guy into the center is because I want to kind of pay a little bit of tribute to this idea of the legend of the Spider Woman. And I think these types of lines actually work really well for creating that idea of a spider web. And it's almost kind of like this idea of the sunflower plus the web. It all kind of comes together for me. And I want to do one more. Once you get into the rhythm of the Zentangling, seriously, you guys are going to be relaxed. This is for all ages. You can make it as simple as you want. You can make it as detailed as you want. For example, I'm going to push that idea of the flower just a little bit further. Alrighty. Now, I'm liking what's happening up here, so I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to pause. Instead, I'm going to slide down this way. Alrighty. Let's talk about these feathers. Just because you have feathers doesn't mean that they get to be left empty or blank. So that means that they can have different patterns too. For example, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break these guys up. Okay, and I'm going to add on a little bit of something extra. I kind of like that idea. I know this feather is pretty different from that one, so maybe I'll do a different type of line. Trying to repeat that line as well as I can. Okay, and how about over for this one? I'm going to bring that idea of the circle shape back one more time. And I'm going to combine these ideas together. Remember, this is your Zentangle Dreamcatcher. Make it your own, make it unique, have fun with it. Now there are two things I'm going to do before I switch over to anything else. One, I want to make that line that I used to connect my first feather a little bit thicker. Okay, and I'm going to make the point where it connects to the edge of my Dreamcatcher a little bit wider. That way it has this idea that it's been wrapped, and we know that that line is just a little bit more strong, it's a little bit more confident, and it's going to be able to securely hold our feathers. There we go. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this idea of my points. And I'm going to make those stand out a little bit more. And the reason why I'm doing this is, one, it adds a little bit more interest, so it does make it look a little bit more fun. It's more fun for me, that's for sure. And two, it's because I think I needed that to make sure that the idea of this connection between no matter where you go, you are protected just a little bit more obvious. Okay, I wanted it to stand out just a little bit more. All right, so we've got Zentangles, we've got patterns, we've got feathers. At this point, I would suggest one of two options. Option number one, you can keep adding on more pattern. You can shade, you can add on more designs and more details. Okay. Option number two, let's add a little bit of color. Now, I've only got a few colors to work with right now, so that means I'm just going to choose a couple of areas that I want to stand out. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that yellow. It's kind of light on this cereal box. And I might even come in and add a little bit more pattern into these feathers. These are kind of open spaces so far. Definitely want to push that idea of the flower just a little. And I like the idea of kind of spreading the color around, because we know if we're looking at a real Dreamcatcher, those beads that are woven in, those beautiful stones and other found items, we know that they are just randomly placed. Okay, so let's switch over to a touch of blue. Ooh, that's a pretty blue. Just go ahead and get the entire center with that blue because I like it so much. You don't need the whole color of the rainbow, but nobody's saying you can't use the whole color of the rainbow. You definitely could. And even on something like a cereal box, you might want to think about go ahead and filling in like the entire item. Color all the way through. Let's see. I think we need a little love right there. How about that right there? And how about that? Now, if I was really wanting to take more time with this, I could even push that idea of the Zentangle pattern and have each one of these create a pattern using color as well. But for the sake of time, And because I don't want to completely fill everything in, even if I did have the time, because I like some stuff being a little bit more blank and empty here and there. I don't know that I would color mine in all the way, but you definitely can. That is a bright pink. Where else should we put this? Oh, it's such a pretty pink. I don't want to stop. Believe it or not, these are the only color pencils I could find. And look how nicely it turned out. It's a nice accident. Only a happy accident. Thank you, Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob Ross, everybody. No mistakes, only happy accidents. Alrighty, so what do you think? Now, could I keep going with this? Absolutely. Could I be adding on more details? Probably so. But I think for me, I think I'm pretty well satisfied with this. You know, I might come in and add just a little bit extra here or there. And just see how this looks. Alrighty, yep, I am calling it. Alright, so there's my Dreamcatcher. If I wanted to trim off any extra, I could, or I could add a little something down here like my signature. I'll just go ahead and do that. Sign it, call it done. Remember, you do have this wonderful flap, so you can actually go and hang it in a window in the real world. Hopefully I will see some of your Dreamcatchers in a window very, very, very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed working with me today. I've definitely enjoyed working with you. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying healthy, and when in doubt, remember, make it work. Have a great day.